This is a major component of what self-sufficiency is about. In fact, it's an essential component of life in itself. That is water. Something that most of us don't think about. We might just pay a water company to funnel water into our homes. We're used to paying the bill, and that's the only thing that we think about. Maybe we also go to a store and purchase water, bottled water, and we take it home. That's it. We don't go farther than that. Today we're going to talk about water because this is something that is essential. Now, what you're looking at right now, this is a lake that is man-made, a pond that is man-made rather, in close vicinity to the land where we are building our home at. This was something that was created by the landowners. It's a family that owns the land. They created a pond on their own without having to go to anyone for permission. They simply did the work and now they receive the benefits of having water self-sufficiency. We're going to talk about water self-sufficiency because water has been weaponized against our people repeatedly over time, and we have to think about how we're going to combat this type of weaponization. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the African Exodus show. I'm your host, Tierney Cherie, and I thank you for joining me today. I do want to remind you all before we get into this set apart segment, if you have not, you can add yourself to my Telegram channel. That is the app that I use to update you all, stay connected, communicate. The link to that is down in the description. So as I said in the introduction, we are going to talk about water. But why are we going to talk about water, right? Water is not something that is essential to liberation. It's not something that's essential to political astuteness. It's not something that we think about. It's something we just take for granted, to be completely honest. So I'm going to just give the most recent, most obvious example of this, although there have been many more. Understand that the issue of water contamination is something that is not just inside of Flint, Michigan, but it's something that happens all throughout the colonized world, and if we're talking about the United States, it happens all throughout the United States, and it's something that has been disproportionately targeted towards African people in the U.S. So in a city, whether you're inside of Baltimore, whether you're inside of D.C., whether you're in Atlanta, whether you're in Mississippi, whether you're in Flint, Michigan, these are things that happen. Water not being of good quality when it comes to what's given to our people. So let's talk about Flint. The Flint water crisis, something most of you are familiar with, but it's never too you can never talk about things like this too much because these are things that you have to keep in your subconscious, keep on your mind, because this happened in real time, recent time, and it can certainly happen again. Some might say it did happen again with Jackson, Mississippi. The Flint water crisis was a public health crisis that started in 2014 after the drinking water for the city of Flint, Michigan was contaminated with lead and possibly Legionella bacteria. In October 2014, during a financial crisis, state-appointed emergency manager Darnell Early changed Flint's water source from the Detroit Water and Sewage Department to the Flint River. Residents complained about the taste, the smell, the appearance of the water. Officials failed to apply corrosion inhibitors to the water, which resulted in lead from aging pipes leaching into the water supply, exposing about 100,000 residents to the elevated lead levels. A pair of scientific studies confirmed that lead contamination was present in the water supply. The city switched back to the Detroit water system on October 16, 2015, later signing a contract with Great Lakes Water Authority. Now, during the time of the water contamination, between 6,000 and 12,000 children were exposed to drinking water with high levels of lead. Children are particularly at risk from the long-term effects of lead poisoning, which can cause a reduction in intellectual functioning and IQ and an increased chance of Alzheimer's disease. The water supply change was considered a possible cause of an outbreak of Legionnaire's disease in the county that killed 12 people and affected another 87, but the original source of the bacteria was never found. Can Flint, Michigan happen again? Can it be the case again that the government decides to take its own actions against our people and we are just exposed because we don't have a alternative preparation, of course it can happen again. And these people know that they all only have to push a button for our people to fall into shambles, particularly whenever you are based in Babylon, USA. All they have to do is say, hey, poison the water supply, cut off the water supply, cut off the supply chain, cut off the electricity. Just a button, just a switch of a button, and your oppressor literally has you scrambling and has you moving in chaos. So that's the world that they created for us, and many of us live in it, sleepwalking. Many of us don't think about the things that we forfeit to the system for convenience. And because of that, many of us have suffered. So we're going to talk about water systems. This is not something that you do overnight. Learning to be self-sufficient, learning to do for self, learning to do without the government. This is not something you do overnight because we've been ingrained inside of a culture of industrialization. Industrialization is better. Industrialization is the way of the future. You don't have to worry about your water. The state will provide your water. You don't have to worry about your electricity. The state will provide your electricity. These are the things we've just been ingrained with, being inside a Western society in which many of us forfeit whenever we become entrenched in that system. Many of us don't know how else to get water. If the water company were to poison our water supply, we'd probably have to run to the store. And if the stores were closed, we would be screwed. So here are some real basic ways to think about water. This is something for you to research more in depth. This is just to inspire you to think creatively about how to remedy this situation. And I certainly encourage, don't just do it for yourself. First, obviously, you have to learn how to do this for yourself, but you have to also teach, and you also have to do these things in communal settings in order to have the most maximum impact. So here are the ways that you can get water. One obvious one that many of you know of is well water. Wells are by far the most common source of off-grid water power for people. People have been using well water since the dawn of civilization for good reason. The biggest downside, though, when it comes to wells is the cost. Inside of the U.S., it costs, it says, about $5,500. But when it comes to getting water right at your home, well water has been a commonly used tactic. And if you don't know, as the depth of your well increases, so does your cost. So the good news is once you complete your well, provide a source of water with very little maintenance. Now, if you're fortunate enough, another type of way that you can have access to water is springs. One of the best ways to get water is through a natural spring. An easy way to think of a spring is as a natural well. There are points where the groundwater moves through cracks and fissures in the earth up to the surface. If you are so fortunate enough to live next to a stream, I hope that you're not going to the store to get water, because the water that you have right next to you, I promise, is more clean, probably without any of the chemicals that are associated with getting water, particularly from plastics. So certainly use that. Now, here's one that I think you should definitely think about: rainwater. One potential source for finding water is rainfall. It's easy, it's free, and it's easy to collect water if you live in a climate with adequate moisture. Even better, rainwater can be one of the cleanest naturally occurring sources you'll find. A simple rain catchment system can divert water from your roof to a storage system. Figuring out how much you can capture over a year is equally easy. So this is something that I am working to have on our land, is having a rainwater system that's going to catch water. In addition, we also have a borehole, so we also have the well situation, but I don't want to rely on one thing, because sometimes boreholes or wells, they dry up. Now, having a rainwater catch system, like it said, it's easy, it's free. I mean, technically, if you just put a bucket outside, you're catching rainwater, but you can also do things such as use your roof, have it put in a certain type of way where the water gets diverted or slides into one place and then goes into some type of water catching systems, whether it's a pail or a large container. So that's ways that you can try to divert water. I know some people also will make their land in such a way that the water will run to one place in order to collect. That's also a way if you want to create a pond, for example, is have the water run into the pond. That's what they did at the land where we live at. So rainwater is one of the things I would definitely say do, particularly understanding that there's other systems that could fail. So even having that as a backup, that's a good thing to do also. Now, here's something I did not know, and this is why I want you to understand that the West has us so manipulated in their system. in order to micromanage us because they have ulterior motives. They're getting us to this new world that they're going to create for us where we can't control basic things that historically we've always had access to. Now, it talks about natural rivers, streams, and ponds. Now, as I said, it's a pond and a pond on the land that we live at. Everyone uses it. No one has to ask anyone for permission. Now, people have been using naturally flowing water pretty much forever. Many prospective off-grid dwellers wonder how they can merely use water found in natural springs, streams, ponds, and rivers on their property. Unfortunately, there are several excellent arguments against relying on this source of water. First and foremost, it is illegal in much of the United States and yet rest of the world. You hear that? It's illegal. Western states rely on something called appropriative water rights to determine who can use the naturally present water. Without going into the legalistic details, most property owners out west don't own the rights to water present on their land. If you draw water from a river or other naturally occurring source, you can be fined. You hear that? I mean, this is something I think I might have heard in passing, but it just resonates now. If you want to get water from a local river, if you want to take it home to use for drinking water or use for cleaning or use it in any type of way, you could literally be fined for doing that. This is the way that they have us inside of their system. This is the way that they have us manipulated. And that might be a reason why you want to consider other living types of situations. Certainly consider ways that you can harvest water, ways that you can dig water, ways that you can have access to that. Don't do it just as a way, as a backup. Try to make that your main source of water. That is what we are focusing on, because I promise you the backup mentality is going to fail a lot of people because they have not become accustomed to doing things a certain way. They've only thought of the water catching systems as a way just in case things go wrong. But then when things go wrong, they might even forget how to filter water, for example. Now, that's something that I want to add. Also, if you want to know how to filter water, there are ways to do it that does not require buying a water filter. So I'm actually going to put a video down below in a pinned comment that you can watch. Easy ways to filter water, buckets, rocks, so many things that you can use in order to filter water low cost if you cannot afford having a formal type of filter that comes from a company. But with that, I hope that was insightful and inspiring and hopefully made you think about where you want to get your water from, where you want your children to get their water from, where you want your community to get their water from in the future. With that, I thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next video.
You often refer to the Bible, but many of the young people who are coming to your concert don't believe in the Bible anymore.
Because the way they've been taught about the Bible, that is not the way of the Bible. You know what I mean? Because if I was living in that world where the everyday interpretation of the Bible go on, then I would have eaten the Bible too. But now that we have found the right way of the Bible, then the Bible is to be loved, because the Bible is a record of man creation. It's the only book it's the only book can show you where mankind began without any prejudice or anything like that, any boastfulness, pride or anything. It just how it go, and that's it. Well, all the Christian people, not even the Christian, all the people who go to churches interpret the Bible and the preachers them. That is not the right way. Because the greatest thing is that life. See, it's life. Life I deal with. If the preacher read the Bible and tell you that you have to die to go to heaven, then he's not reading the Bible. Because the Bible tells you you have to live in a heaven. You don't die and go to heaven. You have to live in heaven. You know, a lot of places on earth could be. But Africa is our heaven. Because that's where we come from. You know, maybe if it's Swiss, maybe if you're from Switzerland and the people know God, then maybe you can live in peace, unity, harmony, you know. But, you know, people are stubborn on this earth. because of material vanity.
To a time when the emperor first became a symbol of his country and of all Africa. Only a veteran can now remember when the last and most brutal chapter of the European scramble for Africa began. 1935, Italy claimed Ethiopia and Mussolini's troops invaded.
Arriverà al benessere, alla potenza e alla gloria. Black men the bugle call, come on, come on, the drums are beating and the bugle call, come on, don't mind what Mussolini says, let us march in battle array, and take the gun in our hand and defend the Ethiopian war, declare.
At the League of Nations in Geneva, the emperor went to plead Ethiopia's just cause. The League, fearful of a shadow which would turn into the Second World War, did nothing. Shamefully, the great powers left Ethiopia to Mussolini and the emperor to lonely exile in England.
His Majesty the Negus Haile Selassie, I call upon the first delegate of Ethiopia.
Nowhere, I think, was the emperor's tragedy felt more deeply than among the black people of the West, the slave descendants in North America and the Caribbean. Black consciousness had dawned in Jazz Age Harlem, and Africa fermented in the exiles' hearts. Many supported a black activist called Marcus Garvey, and when he demanded Africa for the Africans and repatriation to the homeland, they saw Ethiopia as a special symbol of the whole continent. Until now, it alone had not been seized by white Europeans. Such people volunteered to fight for Haile Selassie, although only a handful managed to go, or they organized to send relief.
Black Americans rallied towards the cause, and black Jamaicans likewise, and so the organization was formed in New York, 105th to 1 Lenox Avenue, New York, and as Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated. Those people gave up monies, medicine, clothes, and what have you, and sent into Haile Selassie.
Do you think of yourself more as an African than a Jamaican?
Yeah, because one of the main things is that we're Rasta. From you accept Rasta, you become an Ethiopian, which is Africa. Next thing again, the history of Jamaica shows that the Arawak Indian was living there, and it belonged to the Arawak Indian. Now, our history shows that through slave business, black people come out of the Western thing, you know? So we still figure, say, Africa is a root, you know, and this is where we must return to.
What do you see as most of Africa's problems as far as uniting? I mean,
I see Africa's problem is that outside people keep on fatiguing the people, you know, and make them can't really get them things together. You know, if it's not this superpower, it's that superpower. But Africa is only a place which part of them used to exploit, you know. Nobody no really. Africa so rich that it become a man just go to Africa, steal out what he want, steal and carry back in him country. And Africa stay there like, you know, but Africa ready.
Garvey used to say Africa for the Africans. Is that how you feel?
Yeah, Africa for Africans, a woman abroad, you know. True.
Will your home base though always be Jamaica, or someday would you like to live in Africa?
No, someday going to be in Africa.
Yeah.
Maybe we up in Jerusalem. You know what I mean? Let them Bible land.